Thanks for listening to the latest Beyond the Back Four podcast, available on YouTube and all podcast platforms. Subscribe now so you don't miss a single episode.
Welcome to Beyond the Back Four, another weekend of top quality Premier League drama. Arsenal leaving it late, Liverpool slipping up, Manchester United and Chelsea both losing again. Pressure on their managers, and Graham Potter is out at West Ham. Speaking of Graham Bailey's with us, Kieran Maguire's with us. I'm Sam Homewood, and this is Beyond the Back Four. If you're watching on YouTube, then make sure you're subscribed. Get in the comments below. We want your opinions on the things we're talking about. If you're listening on somewhere like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, make sure you are subscribed, because we are dropping episodes twice a week and we don't want you to miss them. Let's start with Arsenal. Graham, how important is it that they managed to turn it around? This is the kind of statement that we haven't seen from Arsenal yet.
It was, given what the sort of Selhurst Park and Liverpool dropping those points. I think it didn't turn up the pressure, but it just showed, Arsenal, they came to game, they knew what they needed to do, and a bit like match play in golf or the Ryder Cup maybe, they knew what they needed to do and they got it done. St James is never an easy place to go. And I thought they caught pretty well, Arsenal. Did they deserve it? I'm sure Newcastle fans would argue against it. But, now the whole Premier League it seems to be really ramping up now. Arsenal back within 3 points. It makes it so interesting. I know we've only six games of the season gone, and we're talking about how big these games are. But if they hadn't won that game, I think it would have been pretty big, But now they're within 3 points of Liverpool, and it really makes for a good few weeks going into national break.
A lot of money, Kieran, has been spent on assembling this Arsenal squad, and there's obviously pressure on Mikel Arteta to deliver some silverware, specifically perhaps a Premier League title to Arsenal. In terms of the investment, at what point does that outlay become too much pressure for the manager and he could lose his job if they don't win?
Well, if we take a look at the Arsenal wage bill, they've been overtaken by Spurs as recently as 2 seasons ago. And Spurs are always lauded and applauded under Daniel Levy for keeping it tight as far as wages. So to be overtaken by Spurs was a bit of a surprise, I think, for many people. But the average wage, based on my figures, has gone from 100 to 150 grand a week in 2 seasons. So there's been substantial investment. The total squad cost now exceeds £1 billion. There's not many clubs in that category. So it is a very substantial investment. And if you talk to investors, they want a return. Now, Stan Kroenke does not need a financial return. He'll probably like one, but he's got enough money. I've seen the size of his ranch. He's not going to be worrying about things from a monetary point of view. I think Josh Kroenke in particular wants to see that return on investment, as do the fans, in terms of success on the pitch. So therefore, the deal as far as the club is concerned to Arteta is that we've given you the resources, we've given you the investment. It's up to you now to deliver. And therefore, there is pressure. I mean, there's pressure on every manager in the Premier League. There's no doubt about it. But I think that the club will say, we've done our part of the bargain. It's now up to you to do the remainder. I think it's interesting this morning that looking at the bookies odds, Arsenal are now favourites to win the Premier League title, despite Liverpool having until Saturday a perfect start to the season. So there is still a belief in football circles that Arsenal have the depth in squad to achieve on a variety of levels as far as sporting success is concerned. So that increases the pressure on the manager.
Graham, you mentioned earlier that with 6 games in, talking about title races is crazy, but the idea that the bookies have changed their favourite, and I think the nature of Arsenal's win, not if they'd just gone on 1-2-0, I don't think that would have people talking about them in quite the same way, but the fact that they showed a resilience that they've been questioned of having, came from behind, won it really late. Does it change your perception of this Arsenal team? Does it change your perception of Mikel Arteta as a manager?
It doesn't change mine, because I thought he was world class anyway. And what Arsenal have been doing, as Kieran alluded to, off the pitch, they've tied down William Saliba. It seems a matter of time before Saka signs his new deal as well. Arsenal are performing wonderfully well on and off the pitch. And they, are they the best run club in the Premier League? They must be getting towards it. But yeah, they do have to start producing the goods. And I think the bookmakers' odds might be more related to Liverpool in terms of what we've seen them this season. Obviously, it was the first blip we've seen from Liverpool this season. They had a 100% record before they went to Palace, but it wasn't convincing. It hasn't been at any point. So I think that's where we're coming from here. I think the way Liverpool have been playing does open it up, and Arsenal are very much in the mix now, and I think Man City are as well. But I think it's going to be a really fascinating race going in here. We look back to last season. Was it 4 defeats that Arsenal and Liverpool suffered last season, something like that? So we can see you can afford the odd defeat here and there, but just not too many of them. But Arsenal look great. Odegaard came on yesterday. I love Odegaard. I really think there's not a better midfielder in the Premier League, arguably Europe, than him. And when he came off the bench, there's so much depth there now with Zubimendi, Mourinho, Odegaard, Rice. The depth there is so impressive for Arsenal. Eze is there, even though they've got injuries to Madueke. But Madueke was playing great, but they just push on, don't they? They don't notice he's not there. Gyökeres I know he didn't score yesterday, but he just offers something different to them. Arsenal are a different animal this season. They really are. And I think Liverpool, Andy Slot won't say this, but I think if they are worried about one team, it will be Arsenal.
He might say it. No, I imagine he wouldn't. Kieran, are we now seeing value on the pitch when it comes to Arsenal spending?
You're best asking me that at the end of the season, I guess. Because if they finish second again, then Mikel Arteta, this is one for the kids. Mikel Arteta be known as the Jimmy White of football management, and therefore, it's a bit like being in Scotland. Being second is not good enough if you're one of the elite clubs. So I think we will have to address that. Either the Champions League or the Premier League title, I think, would be acceptable. Carabao Cup, ideally not, mainly because they got Brighton in the next round. So I've got a vested interest in saying that, of course. But I think it would have to be one of the senior competitions to say that the investment has proved to be justified.
Is that your view, Graham? Like if Arsenal did win the League Cup this season, that season would be considered more or less a failure, even though it would be their first trophy in 5 years or so?
Oh, totally. Arsenal are in win now mode, but it's to win the big competitions. They need to be champions of England and or Europe, and that's what they're here to do. No doubt about it. Even if they won the League Cup and FA Cup double, that would not be a successful season for Arsenal. Arsenal are here to be champions, and that's will they end up being so? I think it'll take a good team to beat them.
Well, that team could be Crystal Palace. We've talked about the top two. The team that's in third have also had a remarkable start to the season. And much like Arsenal, have been built on an incredibly resilient, incredibly capable defensive setup. Unlike the team they beat, who we're used to being so defensively solid. Well, I suppose, Kieran, this is uncomfortable for you because Crystal Palace will not be your favourite team.
No, but I think you've got to give credit where credit's due. As a Brighton fan, it pains me to say 18 matches unbeaten is fantastic. Doesn't matter which team in the Premier League you are. And for a small club such as Palace to have achieved that is a fantastic achievement. Glasner has proven himself. I mean, why he's not being linked with jobs, it amazes me because he has delivered both at the end of last season and the start of this one. They had trials and tribulations over the course of the summer in terms of being unable to buy until they made a sale or two, and yet they've come through that very well. I was talking to a Crystal Palace fan earlier today, and he was miffed because Palace had fallen from second to third because of the Arsenal victory yesterday. And I said, hold on, just rewind, just think about what you've just said. So yes, it shows that a good coach, good routines, having players with pace, and having a goal scorer as well, is really beneficial, and they continue to deliver.
And we can talk about how they funded all of this, but in a way, that's sales. So, Graham, how impressive is it that Arsenal, that Crystal Palace have been able to be this successful, picking up the FA Cup, winning the Community Shield at the start of the season, and now sitting third, beating the champions, so very recently they lost Eze, and then we go back a year and they've lost Michael Olise, and then before that, Wilfried Zaha. It seems like a team that you could go like Brentford more recently. Well, they lose their best players, but can they keep going? They're losing their best players, but improving. How difficult is that?
Very. I'd throw Joachim Andersen in there as well, who'd lost central defensively. It's a remarkable achievement. It really is. It's no surprise to me that I'm hearing a Brighton fan pushing Oliver Glasner towards the exit door. I would be doing exactly the same thing. And let's not beat around the bush. He has been mentioned in dispatches with Sam's favourite team, Manchester United. So he is on the radar. We know he was of interest to, I think it was Bayer Leverkusen. I apologise if it's the wrong German team in the summer as well. So there is interest there. Kieran will be pleased to hear. And he's out of contract at the end of the season, Sam, Oliver Glasner, which is massive. It really is. So we talk about Mark Gahey, who they are going to lose. But I think it's going to be very, very hard for them. I'm being told that Oliver Glasner is open to staying, but he wants Palace to match his ambitions. Can they do that? I think it's going to be very, very difficult. It really is. But they're doing a remarkable job. Is it April, the last time they got beat? Long may it continue for them. You know, they're going to be very hard to beat in Europe as well. Let's see how far they can go. But you know, Palace, they've got a ceiling. They have. Let's not beat around the bush. They do have a ceiling here. So there's only so much that Oliver Glasner can do with Palace, and their fans won't want to hear it. But they'll be doing very, very well to keep him towards the end of the season. They really will.
There was some solemn nodding there from Kieran when you said, yeah, not been beaten since April. Let's talk about the financial impact of all this success. Losing players, still being successful, got a manager whose contract is maybe going to run out. What is the situation with Crystal Palace? Can they match his ambitions?
Everybody's got a ceiling, and Crystal Palace are the same. The demotion from the Europa League to the Europa Conference is bad news for Palace. I was out with another club recently, and we were talking about European qualification, and Palace have not yet into that Sunday, Thursday routine, which will kick in due course. But when it does, that does have an implication. They've got a fantastic 17 or 18. Have they got a fantastic 25? We will, time will tell. As far as the stats go, and this is sort of where I tend to focus on the numbers, if you are a non-big club, and it was exactly the same for Brighton, I think it could potentially impact upon Forest this season as well. When you get into Europe, on average, you fall 6 places if you're not one of the big 6 clubs that can afford to have a 25-man squad on full wages. So that's looking at a cost of somewhere in the region of around about £20 million. If you win the Europa Conference, you'll just about make a wee profit, and at least you also get another season in Europe in season 26-27. So they've probably got one of the best squads in the Europa Conference. It's one for the fans. I've got many friends who are Crystal Palace fans, and we exchange messages. They'll have a good time regardless. But I don't think it's going to be a financial windfall being in that competition this season. Finishing 3rd or 4th and qualifying for the Champions League would be transformational, because that puts an immediate £50 million into the kitty, and that could be the catalyst to get Glasner to stay over the course of next year. Because how many other Champions League squads or clubs would be coming in to offer him services, and he's got guarantees at Palace. He will be walking on water as far as the fans are concerned.
I've never seen anyone look so pained to say, I have got friends that are Crystal Palace fans. Let's talk about the team they beat then. Eddie Nketiah scored the winning goal. It's probably the biggest goal he's ever scored for Arsenal. He was just wearing a Palace shirt. Does this expose what maybe we've seen of Arne Slot's Liverpool team, slightly chaotic at the back, and this is the time where their late goal wasn't enough, Graham?
I think it's what we've touched on previous episodes. This is a new system that Liverpool are getting into here. And Ryan Gravenberch, who started the season phenomenally well, a wonderful talent, he's not really coping in that double pivot so much. He's having to do an awful lot of work. And a bit like the Manchester United situation, they don't have 2 players capable of playing that double pivot, which is what they're asking of these teams. I think on Saturday he tried to go back to the old system, didn't he, with Szoboszlai in that role, and it didn't work. And then he brought on Gakpo, wasn't it? And he went back to the system with Wirtz as well. Yeah, it's not quite clicking. Obviously losing Leone to the injury midweek really hurt them as a squad as well. I heard, it really got to the players a little bit, that one, because he was such a brilliant young player. So yeah, it was a bit of a tough one, but let's not disrespect Palace too much. It's a really hard place to go to at the minute. I think Liverpool would probably cursing their luck that they're facing Palace, who are on the crest of the wave, playing so well. Yeah, I don't think we should read too much into it. Liverpool are playing ever so well, and Isak is just getting into things now. I'm not too worried by Liverpool. I really don't think they've got going yet, and we'll see in the next few weeks just how much they can integrate Isaac into this new system, Wirtz as well. I wouldn't be too worried about them, but yeah, they were very poor at the weekend. They were.
Okay. Let's move on to another team that have been very poor of late. Manchester United lost 3-1 at Brentford. Does anybody think that what is happening at the club is in any way, shape or form surprising anymore? Kieran, this seems consistent with what's happened in the Premier League from a financial perspective. How long can the club continue down this road?
Well, they can continue for a very long time, because if we perhaps compare them to Liverpool's fallow years, and Liverpool went the best part of 25 years, 30 years, whatever it was, without winning a title. And yes, you've got to give them credit, because they did win the Champions League in the intervening times, but they were still Liverpool. They were still that cachet. The fact that Jim Ratcliffe refers to the club as a fantastic brand, I think, is indicative of a cultural issue, which is a problem at the club. The people that have come in from Ineos are treating people as commodities. And if you're operating in the service sector, and that's what Manchester United, they're in the entertainment industry, they're in the service sector, then you've got to work out how to manage people. And I think that is a major problem. The mistakes that they have made have very much come from the top, in terms of giving Ten Hag an extended contract, or effectively taking up the option for a further year, then sacking him, 6-8 weeks later. The recruitment of Dan Ashworth and the sacking of Dan Ashworth, it seems to be very, very muddled. And you've got to look at what's happening at board level, because in terms of resources, Manchester United are at the very highest. They have spent, I was looking at their accounts, which came out recently, they spent £347 million in the year to the 30th of June 2025. So that is very much at the top drawer level. The wages, whilst the wages have now fallen below those of now Manchester City, Arsenal and Liverpool, that is all to do with the fact that they're not paying bonuses. I get to see contracts at times, and I know the bonuses that are paid for Champions League qualification, and that's why the Manchester United's wage bill is down. It's not really to do with sacking Doris in the in the canteen, as sort of is being alleged. So they've got to sort out things as far as the culture of the club is concerned, the management of the club, and then you let the coach and the players move on. Certainly, as far as player investment is concerned, again, they're one of, there's only 3 or 4 clubs that have breached the £1 billion investment in players, and that is Chelsea, who are at 1.5, then Manchester United, then Manchester City, and now we've got Arsenal creeping into that group as well. So the money has been spent. I know nothing about football. I'm always the first to admit that. I can add up, and that's about it. But even I'm saying to myself, well, for £1 billion, with the exception of Bruno Fernandes, when was the last decent signing that Manchester United have made since Sir Alex left?
Let's talk about Bruno Fernandes, Graham. Do you think if he'd scored his penalty, the game changes? Because the momentum at the time was very much with United, and also within that penalty was the decision. VAR took their time and decided not to overrule the referee and offer a red card.
Yeah, it was key, obviously. If he'd scored it, who knows? They could have got something from the game, but they really didn't play. Did they deserve to take something from the game? I'm not so sure. It was so flat wasn't it? And I'm not a United fan, but it was so flat from United. I was expecting them to go there and win. I really was, Sam. And so, yeah, it's a huge game this weekend against Sunderland. That shows you where this one sentence sums up the issues at Manchester United, Sam. It's a huge game this weekend against Sunderland. That sums up Manchester United where they are now.
This is my favourite part of the podcast. Do you think, from what your understanding, do you think the board still back Ruben Amorim? And if so, is that because they believe in what he's trying to achieve, or is it because they don't want to admit that they were wrong?
Publicly, they are backing him. They say they've got his full commitment. It showed in the summer. They bought they're buying the players he wants for his system. Jason Wilcox is backing him. Behind the scenes, they are doing due diligence on other people. As was revealed at the weekend, Sir Jim Ratcliffe has spoken to Sir Gareth Southgate. We know Oliver Glasner is on their radar, as is Andoni Iraola. I've even been told that Michael Carrick is on standby to fill some sort of role if needed. They are backing him, but at the end of the day, as Kim said, it's an entertainment and results business, and you can only back him for so long.
We are entertaining because entertaining things are unpredictable, and no one is more entertaining than the most unpredictable team.
It's one of those, as we alluded to, this system that he's sticking to. If he is going to stick to it, it's causing issues with the captain, Bruno Fernandes, who was, Kieran said he's one of their better signings. He's not looking like that at the moment. He was woeful at the weekend. He, as I've said before, in my opinion, he's not fit to wear the Man United captain's armband. He can't hold a light up to him with Roy Keanes and the Robsons. He's a good player. He's not a great player. And I think he's having to carry a lot, to be fair to him, if he was allowed just to play in number 10. But you can't do that because they've signed 2 brand new number 10s. Well, players who are playing number 10s, but they're not proper number 10s. It's just so muddled, the whole thing. I last week, when someone asked me the question, Sam, will Amorim see January? I really thought he would. After the weekend's performance and Sunderland coming up, I've got my doubts.
Exciting times. Can the club afford to sack another manager and then employ another manager, Kieran?
Yes, I don't think that will be a problem. Manchester United are very detailed in the costs of redundancy, and we saw that. We've seen that quite a lot of times in recent seasons because they have shifted, not just managers, but also executives have left the club as well. Given that it's £3.5 million per place in the Premier League, it will cost them, say, 10 million to get rid of Amorim. If you move up 3 places, you recover that money. So I think the bigger issue is that Adidas aren't very happy, given that they're paying £90 million a year. So because Manchester United haven't qualified for Europe, that's costing Manchester United 10 million. I've noted that some of the other sort of sponsorship opportunities at the club are not being taken up. And that's when you start to get a little bit twitchy. This is Manchester United. This is arguably the biggest club in the country, if not the biggest club in the world. I know Real Madrid would probably bristle at that comment, but they should be able, with sort of the global interest in the club, to have a queue of willing commercial partners and sponsors, and that queue is not as long as it once used to be. They did have a good year from a commercial perspective in 24-25 with Snapdragon, with Adidas coming on board, but I don't think the sponsors are getting value for money, and that will make some others think twice.
We're going to switch now to another team that are having a tough time, Chelsea, but let's focus on Brighton. Kieran, how was your enjoyment of Chelsea-Brighton?
On a scale of 1 to 10, 11. To be fair, Chelsea were by far the better side until the sending off. But the sending off would have, in all probability, resulted on a goal because it was 2 on the keeper. That certainly changed the match. But we've seen other matches where teams have gone down to 10 men and they stick players behind the ball. What surprised me was the way that Chelsea capitulated. They appeared to have no leaders on the pitch. And I think that's a function of a football club where, again, I look at it from an owner's point of view. I look at it from a business point of view. They have a strategy of recruiting very young players. This is not disrespecting those very young players, because let's face it, they're incredibly talented. But sometimes you need a bit of experience to come in and say, right, okay, we're down to 10 men. We're going to organise ourselves. We've got different duties, and you find those leaders on the pitch. Brighton had the perfect opportunity. They brought on Danny Welbeck. Now, if there's somebody that realises, okay, I'm now up against two young defenders. I think the defenders were 18 and 19. He knows how to find the spaces. And yes, it was Lim Central. I was right behind the goal. And I'd just like to apologise to Mark Cucurella for calling him a pound shop Ross Noble.
That's a really, really good line. I don't think you should apologise. Graham, Enzo Maresca, what kind of pressure is he under now?
Yes, like I say, Kieran is officially now funnier than Ross Noble as well. He is to a certain extent, to the extent that all Chelsea managers are. I don't think he's as good as the last result, but Maresca, from his part, the lack of central defensive cover was highlighted at the weekend. Hato, who was signed as a left back predominantly, he's a hybrid, he can play there. And then Josh Akinpong came on. Maresca would say, look, I said as soon as Colwell got injured, he told the club's board he wanted another centre half. And I'm sure he's not saying I told you so, but he probably is emailing it, saying, look, I told you we need another centre half. So I'm not sure. I think Chelsea, at points are looking really good, and they've been a bit unlucky with these injuries. So let's not be honest. They've lost Delap, lost Colwell to injury. They are massive losses for Chelsea. They really are. The goalkeeper situation is something they're going to look at. As I've reported, I think the deal for Mike Maignan is way down the road. So I can excuse them for not bringing Donnarumma in, because they've got a world-class one coming in the summer. Great. Behind the Matt Gahey conversation as well, let's not rule them out of that. I just think they've been a bit unlucky with injuries. I really do. And every club has injuries. But if you have Levi Colwell starting on Saturday and Liam Delap up front, I think it's a much better Brighton team. And as I said, every team can say that. But I think the hierarchy will be understanding of that. I think Maresca is a terrific coach for them. He doesn't come in and bemoan having a bomb squad every summer, doesn't he? He doesn't have a go at the owners for saying, why are you giving me 40 players when I only want 25? I think he's a good fit for them, and and Brighton took advantage at the weekend. I just think it was some very silly decisions by players on the pitch that cost him. I don't think it was down to Maresca's tactics particularly. I don't think for 1 minute he told Andre Santos that when you do have the ball, pass it back across the middle. It's what I tell my 12-year-old son not to do every Sunday.
So in a previous episode, you two had a nice fiery debate about whether or not this Chelsea team would be title contenders, and they are 7 points adrift after 6 games, which is not perfect for them, but time will tell. Graham, you broke the story. Graham Potter is gone. Why now? Why did they wait? Why did they go for Nuno? What's the situation?
It's a real mess, that David Sullivan has... I'll give David Sullivan a little bit of credit here. His gut reaction when they first appointed Graham Potter was to hand him a short-term deal. Unfortunately, other members of the club's hierarchy thought it was prudent to hand Potter a longer-term deal. As it turns out, he was probably the most unsuccessful manager in West Ham's history. And it's been coming. The thing with West Ham most recently is that as we saw with David Moyes, they started talking to other managers when he was in place to talk to Lopetegui at his mansion. They did the same with Lopetegui when they talked to Graham Potter. And then I'm sure Graham Potter saw the news that some of us were breaking that Karen Brady was meeting Nuno whilst David Sullivan was meeting Slaven Bilic. It was only going to end up in one way. What I really don't get is that West Ham saw what was coming, yet they allowed Graham Potter's recruitment staff to make changes to make them weaker during the window. Yes, they had to sell Kudos, but then to let Aguerd go on deadline day, as we alluded to on the show, who went on to score the win against PSG, by the way, for Marseille, and then sign Igor from Brighton, who, no disrespect to Brighton, West Ham, if you can't get in the Brighton team, why you sign them? It just beggars belief. I think West Ham are just... And they've gone for Nuno, who I think is a very good manager. He's coming in. I understand he's the most expensive manager in West Ham's history. It's a gamble, but obviously, as Kieran will probably testify to in a minute, West Ham cannot go down. So they've made the gamble on Nuno to keep him up. And I think they are better placed with him in charge. Will they definitely stay up? I think they're going to have to spend an awful lot of money in January to stay up.
Right. We're almost out of time. I just want to get your thoughts on the themes of the season so far. So in the top half of the Premier League, we've seen incredible resilience from Liverpool winning in with their late goals. They scored a late goal, but it wasn't enough. They slipped up, and it was Arsenal's turn to capitalise from a late goal. City, absolutely dominant again. And in the bottom half, Chelsea, United, absolutely chaotic. Wolves still unable to get a win. Are we seeing a title fight between the most resilient sides and a bottom half that's just about controlling chaos?
I think we are seeing the benefits of those clubs that have invested in squads which are balanced, which fit into a strategy. I think the number of late goals that we are seeing is quite, very intriguing. Liverpool won probably 4 of their 5 games with very late goals, and ironically they lost at one. It's not now 90 minutes. It's can you concentrate for 97 minutes? And if you make a mistake, you're going to be punished. So those clubs, which I think have got that philosophy of we can bring in somebody who can match the player that's just been removed, are going to be in a stronger position, because if you're not knackered after 90 minutes because you've only been on for a few and you're a top quality player, you won't be making those mistakes that we've seen in the last weekend and the season so far.
I was thinking about this. What's really pleasing to me is seeing Erling Haaland and Phil Foden playing with smiles. I think the Premier League is a better place when them two are pairing and Man City are going for it. And I think it's a different... I think they're going to challenge Arsenal and Liverpool. At the bottom, I'm just... Not that I want a West Ham or Brentford or Wolves to go down. I'm just really hoping, for the Premier League's sake, the 3 promoted teams don't go down.
It would be more interesting, wouldn't it? But I did slight caveat, I don't want United to go down because we can't rule that out at any point in the season. So that's it for Beyond the Back for this week's episode. United, Chelsea, Liverpool, all beaten, but in different circumstances with different storylines surrounding their clubs. Arsenal showing their mettle, now favourites to win the Premier League title after 6 games, but I'm sure it will all change again. Make sure you are subscribed wherever you're watching. Make sure you get in the comments when they're there. And we are back on Wednesday, where we're talking all about the possible return of the European Super League. We'll see you then.